Peter Comino.
Peter Comino.
Panagiotis.
Ioannis, Anastasios, Kominos.
Okay. So, and you were born in
26.
1926. But when did your dad, when did he come out?
1908, before the Great War.
Okay, so his name?
Anastasios.
Oh, okay. So Anastasios comes out in 1908.
Yeah.
Was he the first of the commoners in that family?
No, my Uncle George was first, who opened a shop in Armidale, and he came 1906 to Armidale.
Okay, so he opened up his own shop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when he called the rest of the brothers. He never got married, but he was like the father figure. They had no mother. Mother died early.
And so what, your dad comes out in 1908.
Yes.
And he makes his way up to Armidale to see his brother or to work for his brother? How did it work?
He worked in Sydney first, opening oysters and all that stuff. And then he went to Armidale with his brother. But my father didn't want to work for anybody, so shortly after that he went up to Gyra and he opened his own business, that one there.
So
that's about that. He lived. There was no electricity in Gyra until 1932, and he. I remember the shop with lanterns and that in it, but we lived away from the shop until 1930, and then Father built the house on top of the shop. Yeah.
Okay, and who does he marry? What's your mum's
He
name?
married Stratula Mavrogiorgi,
Okay,
and she was Karavidiko.
okay, from Calabar.
Yeah.
Okay, and when did they get married?
They got married at what's the church in Burke Street? Yatriada?
Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Okay, and what year was that? Do we know?
It must have been. It must have been 1925, I think. And Mum came out here. She was only about 17, but you couldn't get married unless you were 21. Yeah, you couldn't. The whole time I was in the Air Force, no one had served me a beer in Australia because I was only 18.
Oh, that's right.
And so what Father did, he put Mum's age up because there were no records in those days. He put it up to 21, and she was. And those days the Greeks had to have their own business and everything before they could get married. So Mum came with some people called Diakopoulos in Gosford, and he was my godfather, Nick Diakopoulos, and Mum was with them, and Dad came down, and they went together, chaperoned for a week, and they got married the next. Yeah.
And so, what memories do you have of Gyra? Does your family stay in Gyra when you were born?
Yes, Father was there for 45 years in Gyra.
45 years in Gyra.
Yeah, and then he went to Armidale. He spent a few years there. In the last years, he came to Sydney. Yeah.
Okay, and all those years he had the Red Rose Cafe.
In Gyra, yes.
Wow.
Well, he was one of the first. The population of this country was close to 4 million. Now there's that many in Sydney. Yeah.
And what makes Gyra special? Is there anything special about Gyra?
Look, my father's people in that, they were all, you could say from the bush, they didn't like, most of them didn't like the cities, they liked the country. So they went to these far out country places and started a business, and they had to have their own business, everything, before they could get married.
And so, do you grow up in the shop? Do you help out in the shop and all that when you were growing up as a teenager?
Until I was 18, and then I went into the Air Force.
Mm.
But yes, it was what would you say? We had like a general store. It was a cafe, groceries, fruit and vegetables. I remember helping Father pack bananas in the window in pyramid style. One by one he was doing it. And they were wonderful memories because we used to have a chat there and everything with Father.
And were there any other Greeks in Gyra, or were you?
No, we were the only ones.
Wow.
Yeah. And not like Armadale, there were a lot of Greeks. I can understand now why they went in their own little cliques after, because the Australians wouldn't accept them. Yeah.
Mm. And tell me, you said you talked about the other cafe. There was another cafe in the in Gyra. The what was it called?
No, I called them a white man's cafe. Like a friend of Greg that I knew at the time. My brother. My brother's first wife unfortunately died young, and he married a school teacher. I said one day to her, I said, I see my brother's married a white woman. Yeah.
So, and your relationships with the indigenous people, the Aboriginals?
I liked them. They were good people. They were badly treated. They used to, I don't know why, but they used to drink all sorts of muck. But they used to come up for seasonal work, potato digging, pea picking, all that sort of thing. Yes.
Mm. And tell me, so let's move now into the Air Force story. You were so young, why did you enlist?
Oh, look, I felt, 2 years before that I was in the Air Training Corps that sort of groomed you for the Air Force.
And how did you get involved with that?
Well, the fellows I was going to school with, that we said, how about it? So we all, and our headmaster was the one in charge of the Air Training Corps.
Do you remember his name?
Charlie Ebert.
Charlie Ebert, the principal, was the...
Yes.
And what were you taught during these 2 years?
Oh, well, we had the postmaster, used to take classes of the night, and he'd teach us Morse, for example. I got pretty good at Morse. I could send about 24 words a minute, and I could receive about 18, which was pretty good for Morse. And still, I never forgot it, did it.
And tell me, the postmaster, what was his name?
Jones. Yeah. He used to be have a few drinks and come to the night session, and he'd say now, da-da, da-da.
Okay, with a bit of a music,
yeah.
musical tone. And so for 2 years you're in this corps, being trained, being groomed.
Yeah, and then as soon as I was 18, I went straight into the Air Force.
And what was Mum's and Dad's attitude to all this?
Well, Mum was crying and everything, and Pop was trying to make a joke of it. And I remember on final leave that there was this Australian soldier there, and he with his father, and Mum was crying and Dad was laughing and joking, and the train came in, and the Australian father shook his son's hand and he said, well, goodbye, son, and that was it. And, Mum and Dad, they're hugging me and everything. Much different. We had a different thing.
Mm. And did Dad say anything to you, the last words? Were there any wishes, any advice, any...
No, he was a wonderful man, Dad. See, I was so ignorant, I thought my father knew nothing. I remember one time I went to the newsagent and I slipped one comic inside the other. He was an Evreos, this newsagent. My mother used to make him a lemon squash soda every day he'd come down there, and she never charged him once. Anyway, when he caught me pinching this comic, instead of being decent enough to talk to me, he takes me down to see my father, you know, in dignity. And that's the sort of miserable bastard he was. Anyway, Father said to me, I just want you to remember one thing. Your eyes are the most precious part of your body. It's better to lose your eyes than your good name.
Wow.
I never forgot that.
Wow. And so you leave Gyra and you go, where do you go? Do you go to Sydney?
I had to come down and did a medical at Woolloomooloo and everything. And then I did my rookies at Cootamundra.
What are your rookies? What's that?
That's as you come in, you know, the drill, learning to shoot different weapons and all this sort of thing. It lasted 6 weeks. Then you have a passing out parade where they send you to a unit. So, yes, and I did that there. It was cold as charity. Oh, terrible place. Anyway, then I came from Cootamundra to Melbourne, and then from Melbourne I went to South Australia, and then I was posted to Williamtown near Newcastle. Anyway, my brother-in-law, who wasn't my brother-in-law then, his mother and my mother, they sort of wrote to one another and said for us to meet because he was in Williamtown at the same time. Anyway, Mum asked the mother how would I know him, you know. And she was very reticent about her son, you know. And she said, just look for the most handsome fellow there, and that's him.
What was his name?
Jack Moulos, John Moulos, John Paul Moulos, yes. And I married his sister, Matina, and we were married 64 years, and she's just gone recently.
And tell me, so you met Moulos at Williamtown?
I met him, yes, and he used to take me to Singleton, where their shop was, on weekend leave, because I couldn't go to Gyra, it was too far away, yes. And so I'd go there, and they had a wine and spirit licence and everything, and a car, which was something, and so I used to load the car up with grog and that, and I'd go out and just for a little spin.
Wow. So after you, after Williamtown, how long did you stay in Williamtown for? A couple of months?
A couple of months, yes. And then when I came from Adelaide, I think Williamtown, then I came to a place called Bradfield Park. You heard of that? It's out here somewhere. And Bradfield Park was an embarkation depot. And the wharfies were on strike at the time. They wouldn't load the ships with arms, food or ammunition because they were on strike. Now any other country in the world they'd take them out and shoot them. But no, what they did was they got all the fellas in the forces to go down to the wharves and load the ships. Yeah.
When do you find out what unit you're in?
Oh, well, when I went to embarkation depot, and then from there, they said I was to go to 79 Spitfire Squadron that was at Morotai. So we went to Brisbane, and then the boat was supposed to be in Townsville, and we got up to Townsville, and the boat was back in Brisbane. So with typical efficiency, instead of bringing the boat to Townsville, they took us all back to Brisbane to get on the boat. Now, we were 16 days at sea, I remember.
And what's passing through your head? What are you thinking during this time? Are you know, is it a certain element of fear?
Well, look, it was too early to be frightened. When I got up there to Morotai, the Japanese taught me the real meaning of the word fear. I think I was the most frightened fellow that ever went away.
And so 16 months at sea, 16 days at sea. Do you go straight to Morotai?
Yes. We went to Finchhaven first, and then from Finchhaven round to a place, Biak, and then from Biak to Morotai.
Is it all by ship?
All by ship, yeah. They were American Liberty ship, yes.
Yes. And when you're stopping over to these places, are you dropping off people? Are you taking things? Or
No. There were, I forget how many. We had Air Force, Army, and on the ship. There was quite a few of the 7th Division Australian Army that was going up to Balikpapan, near Borneo. And yes, so I remember when we left Brisbane, you had 2 meals on the ship, morning and evening, and you got a chit for it. And somewhere up near the Coral Sea, the boat started to roll, and these big army fellas, you'd have a chit, and you've got to pass the diesel engine room to get to the galley. And as you get near there, these fellas they'd go white and sick, and they'd head for the rails to vomit. And they wouldn't want any food. And of course I'd ask them before they went, if he didn't want his chit, could I have it? So I was getting a couple of extra meals a day. And I was just lucky. And then, I think because the submarines attack at dawn and dusk, you had to go up on deck each time with your May Wests on and all that sort of thing, in case you were torpedoed.
So that was a constant fear, as in that could happen.
It could happen. I didn't give it that much thought. I didn't really. When we got up there, we got into landing barges, and it was night time, and the landing barge was going out and then coming into the side, and we're coming down these rope ladders on the side of the ship, and as I'm coming down, halfway down, I slipped and fell, and as luck would have it, the barge was just coming in, and I landed in the barge, and this big army fella picked me up. He says, "You all right, son?" Now, had it been when the barge was out and I fell and the barge came, I would have been crushed to death. Anyway, we got to the beach, and there was nothing for us. We had to sleep out in the rain and everything, and then we went to the unit the next day.
So what is Morotai, an Air Force base? What is there? Well,
look, there were many Americans there, the Australian Army, and this island had 2 airstrips on it, and the rest of the island was Japanese, and all dotted round there was a place called the Halmaheras. Now the Halmahera, so this place used to be the Dutch East Indies. So in the Halmahera dotted islands were full of Japanese, and so when we were there, we had ammunition and everything in the tent, because we thought they were going to come across from these little islands and come up the beach and get us. Well, the rest of the island, the army used to go out and patrol every night, and the rest was Japanese. Now, because they were short of guards, they had me do what we called the graveyard shift, which was 12 at night till 4 in the morning by myself. So I used to go out and put my back against the cowling of the Spitfire, and I'd have the Tommy gun with the safety off, and I wasn't going to shut my eyes for 4 hours. I've seen palm trees get up and go away, you know, you hallucinate after a while. But the Japanese taught me the very meaning of the word fear. I was scared, and not long after I was there, there were two guards that were out one night, and both had their throats cut. And I don't want to tell you this, but that was how it was. And so I was very frightened. And,
so was it always guarding the aeroplanes, or did you go on patrol? Did you go on patrol at all?
No, the army went on patrol, and we had to guard the aeroplanes. So the aeroplanes were all on the side of the strip, and at the time the bombers were going over to a place called Balikpapan and bombing Balikpapan, and the army was there too. And so you'd have what they call, you'd get 6 inches of rain in 1 hour. And the bombers would be taking off at the side of the airstrip, and the rain, you couldn't hear yourself think. Yeah, so...
so tell me, during the day, what were your duties? What did you do?
I was with maintenance on the aircraft, the moving parts, the ailerons and the rudder and all that sort of thing. And a bit of doping and spraying to keep them together. Yeah.
So you were more maintenance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have to be trained to do all this stuff, or?
Oh, you did, yes. I had, I was, I think it was at Melbourne that I did, or Adelaide, one of the places. And then you become, whatever it is, they then qualified and you go. Yeah.
And so, is Morotai your base ever attacked in the time that you were there?
Well, we had one air raid one night where the bomb went off down near the wharf, you know, and we had anti-aircraft guns, American anti-aircraft guns, and that all around our camp. And when they'd fire 3 red shells up, that means that there was a raid coming to prepare.
And tell me, what were your dealings with the American soldiers? Were they, how'd you see them?
I liked them. They were a generous crowd, a bit naive, but very nice people. One fellow came from a place called Little Rock, Arkansas, and another one from I forget the big naval place, whatever it is. Anyway, they both wanted me to come back out. We had no food in our camp at one stage, and I used to take these American fellows, master sergeants, used to take them over a bottle of Australian beer, and they'd give me cartons of cigarettes and magazines this high. And I felt a bit guilty one day, so I took them a bottle for nothing. And no Australian had ever given the Americans anything for nothing. Anyway, they thought so much of me that they took me in their mess lines. And I was getting American food for a while when we had none of it. And They were living like kings, you know, roast beef and strawberry jam on the side.
What were you eating when you had food?
Yeah, this. Oh, when I had it.
When the Australians had food.
Oh, when I did. Oh, just pretty staple stuff. A lot of bully beef and biscuits and all that. It wasn't anything marvellous, but the Americans had everything. Oh, they did. Yeah.
And did you have any leave? Were you given leave at all?
You can't have leave up there.
Ah.
No, you've got to stay till you go home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you know, our commanding officer was 22 years of age, and he was the first. I was 19, and he was the first man to fly a Spitfire in Australia. And there's a documentary picture with Robert Gordon Menzies, is it, Prime Minister, talking to him. He looks like a schoolboy, you know. Anyway, the difference in the British and the Australians. His name was Ken James, squadron leader Ken James, and he comes out of his tent one morning and he said, we were having breakfast on the wing of a Liberator bomber, and he said, come on chaps, he said, I've got to call this parade. And the armourer next to me said, if you want a bloody parade, you come down here, and we're having breakfast. Down he comes. They gave him a biscuit tin, he put his foot on it, and they gave him a mug of tea, and he had the parade down there. Yeah.
Were there a lot of British there at Morotai?
Mostly Americans, not many British, no. No.
Tell me, was there any case where the Spitfires would fly out and only one would go missing or one was shot down?
There was a day this replacement pilot came up, and with the parachute sergeant and me and another fellow, we were all talking to this fellow. He was an old boy from St Ignatius College, and now the fellow over here, James Rogers, he published 2 books on the First War and the Second War of all the boys from St Ignatius. When I went over there the day for the book launch in the Second War, I saw this photograph up there, and this replacement pilot that came up, say he came on the Wednesday, and we're all talking to him and everything. Thursday morning, he goes out and he's strafing a barge or something in the Halmaheras, and he went straight in, crashed into the sea. So he had one day he lived, and as I went to the book launch over here, there's his photo, and I went up to the author and I said, I knew that man for one day when he came. Yeah.
And how long were you in Morotai for?
6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
And where did you go from Morotai?
Home.
Oh, home?
Yeah.
Wow.
6 months up there is worth, one fellow said it was worth 6 years in the Middle East.
So, what was the worst aspect of Morotai, do you think? Was it the heat? Was it the weather?
No, I didn't care about any of that. I was young and I could. I did get sick a couple of times. I had dengue fever and I was in a coma for about 3 days, and I had malaria and tropical sores. Yeah, that was about it with that. I was lucky with dengue because in the coma, 3 days is quite a long time.
And after 6 months you come back to, is it Sydney? Where are you stationed?
I made a mistake. I came back home to Gyra, and now you won't believe this story. I came back home, and the Greek mothers, they were the boss. Whatever they said went. And a friend of mine, Don Beasley, was going to a dance in Armidale, and he had a car, which was very unusual those days. and he said, going to come to the dance tonight, Pete? And I stupidly went and asked Mum if I could go. Here am I, you know, I wasn't 21 yet. My 21st birthday was a bit later in April. Anyway, I asked Mum if I could go, and she said no. And I stupidly didn't go. I should have just bloody well walked out, you know. But that's the power these women had, you know.
So in Australia, your national service is at 2 years. How long did you have to stay in the Air Force?
I had to stay. You see, those that were married with children and everything, it was a point system, and they were discharged almost immediately. But when you were single without any responsibilities, I had to wait. So I wasn't discharged till something like January or February of 1946 before I was discharged. Yes.
So those last few months, where were you stationed?
At Richmond.
At Richmond.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you get discharged, and where do you go from there? Do you go back to?
I went back to Gyra. Stupidly, I should have gone home to see the family and look. I went into the shop, and they had Savaloys. You remember Savaloys?
Yes, I remember. Yes.
They used to call them starvers, and my father, they called him Jack. So his dad behind the counter. I was still in jungle grease. I come in and I said, give us a dozen starvers, Jack. Up, right? He gets down, he gets the savs and he puts them on the counter. And I said, don't you know me, Dad? And he leaped over the counter like that. Yeah. And my brother George and sister Judy, they were just kids round the side of the shop. And I was going round to come back into the kitchen to see Mum.
And tell me, when do you marry?
I married in 1953. Matina Moulos, my brother-in-law's sister, and we were married 64 years.
And tell me, by that stage, were you still in Gyra, or had you moved on, or?
Oh no, I left Gyra. I came down to Sydney, and I tramped the streets of Sydney looking for a job, couldn't get one, and a long time. And then in the end I ended up with Prouds the jewellers with them. And then I stayed with them for a couple of years, and then my brother-in-law said that his father wanted to leave the shop, come to Sydney to live. He said, would you like to come up for as a partnership? Well, I did, because I don't think I could have made it those days.
And where was this shop? Was this in Armidale, was it?
Which?
The
Singleton.
Oh, Singleton.
Yes, yeah. That's where they were. That's where my brother-in-law was. Yeah, it came. And you know, we had these bloody stupid so-called army weekend soldiers up there, and they were real shit. Can I say that? They were, look, I kept saying to the brother-in-law, but he wouldn't listen. They used to shut the pubs at 10 and then come over the road to us, drunk, fights, stealing. They'd steal everything they could put their hands on. And they were a rabble. They weren't a disciplined army or anything. And I hated them. And every night there was fights and this and the other. I had one night where I had a very good friend who's in the police in Singleton, and he used to shut the police station at 12. We'd be just shutting the shop at 12, and I'd be going home, and I'd go with him to the pub, and we'd have a few beers before that kept me sane. A few beers with murder. Yeah.
And so Singleton, what was the shop called?
The Niagara.
The Niagara Cafe. Right. And how long were you there in Singleton for?
I was there for a fair while. I think I must have been there at least 18 years, something like that. Yeah. And then we sold and came to Sydney.
And is that where you have your kids, up in Singleton?
All my children were born in Singleton, 2 boys and a girl.
Mm.
Yeah.
So was it inevitable for you to end up in Sydney?
I think so, yes. I would never have gone back to Gyra, no. And, in fact, what I should have done was, well, you know what you should have. I should have come home after the war, and after a little while I should have come to Sydney to make my way. Well, I came down here seeking fame and fortune, and I found neither.
Tell me, was Greekness instilled? At home, did you speak Greek when you were growing up? Was it? Did you grow up as a Greek boy?
I'm the only one in the family, because Mum, she never did master the language. But Father was very wise. He had a book and he learned and everything, and he spoke well. But Mum was always she'd say he was on the railway platform, which is close, platform. She was saying, for your birthday, many returns, happiness to the day. Yeah, she was a really good woman, you know. I never really appreciated anything. And you know, always, I was one of the lucky ones. In the 30s, had soldiers from the Great War in the street, one arm and one leg begging in the street.
In Gyra?
In Gyra, begging, passing through, you know. And here am I with a warm bed, and these people going, digging spuds and all that sort of thing, in the bitter cold and everything in the morning. And I had wonderful food. Mum was a great cook. But you see, when you're a kid, you don't really, if you've got something like that, you don't really appreciate it until you really know all about it. When I found out afterwards, you know, how lovely it was, the soup over lemon and stuff. Yeah, so, yeah, that was about it.
Okay. And tell me, did you ever go back to Kythera? Did you visit Kythera?
No, I've never been.
You've never been?
No, well, you see, now, when I came home, I didn't want to go anywhere. I don't even want to go to Manly. And after all my family's been, and they went to Papu's home. Incidentally, where they came from, the Duryanica father, he said, nothing will ever happen to us. It'll always be good, because Papu gave part of the land in the Duryanica to build Ioannis church. So he had that. Yeah, he was a very wise man. I never knew how wise and how much I loved him. Is that it?
That's it.